The February 3rd, 2022 regular board meeting of the City Colleges of Chicago is now called to order. So please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
and the republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
under
under God,
with
indivisible,
and justice for
with
all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, well, is the chief advisor here? If not, would the general counsel call?
Yeah, no, I am here. Can you hear me? I am here.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
I certainly will. Chair Massey,
Here.
Vice Chair Swanson,
Here.
Trustee Williams,
Here,
Trustee Tillman,
Present.
Trustee Davis.
Yes, yeah.
Trustee Davis, are you here?
I think she's just on mute. So, okay, we have a quorum, right?
Okay, we do. We do have a quorum.
So let the record show that in accordance with the Illinois Public Community Colleges Act and the Illinois Open Meetings Act, we have a quorum. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. We've had on the last minute to make this virtual meeting. Thank you for tuning in. This is, of course, Black History Month. We hope you have time to take part in any festivities related to this important month. This is our first regular board meeting of 2022, and we're looking forward to what we're doing in the rest of this year. For the record, the state of Illinois continues to operate under a statewide disaster proclamation first issued by Governor Pritzker on March 9th, 2020, and reaffirmed in February 2022. Today, we meet virtually to undertake certain actions necessary for the continued efficient operation of the district. For the record, we hold committee meetings prior to the board meeting. If you're interested in viewing these proceedings, the schedule is on the board website, board webpage at City Colleges, which is www.ccc.edu. We will be hearing later from Vice Chair Swanson about the Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Services, which held its first meeting of 2022 earlier today. At the beginning of January, the board held this annual retreat for purposes of training and self-evaluation. It was a very productive session, and it is a reminder of the responsibility, and I should add, a great honor and privilege it is to serve on this very important public board. And I want to thank all of my colleagues on the board for their participation, and Chancellor Salgado and his staff for that very important retreat. I will now ask the chief, well, we've called the roll already. And we have a report. So student trustee Fazil Hope, please proceed with your report.
Thank you, Chair Massey. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to begin by wishing everyone a wonderful Happy New Year. As a sign of respect of Black History Month, I'd like to read a small quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. I pay my respect to everyone who sacrificed their lives for which we are able to live with the guarantee of safety. With that being said, I begin my report for February. Wright College, Wright SGA is proud to serve our campus 20+ active clubs and student organizations. Most of these clubs had to completely restart from scratch after low engagement last year. We are thriving in person and virtually this year with the purchase of online student life software presence branded as Wright Life. One of Wright SGA's goals this year is to build relationship with district staff, admins, and trustees. We have met this past fall with Provost Mark Porter, Chief of Staff and Strategy, Veronica Harrow, and Director of Student Affairs, Fania Dos. Let's help each other to build a better community. Make a plan to visit our campus and meet our Wright SGA. We'd love to learn leadership from you. Email Corey Castle, our SGA president today, ccastle2@student.ccc.edu. Harris Truman College, we hosted our traditional welcome back breakfast the first 2 days of classes with SGA and clubs to provide breakfast and snacks to the students on campus. Students were greeted by faculty, staff, administrator on those days and help answer questions about room locations, student IDs, and other items. Here at Truman, we are working on the weeks of welcome alongside the celebration of Black History Month. All students, faculty, and staff can access and register for these events by clicking on the link, linktr.ee/events. We are updating it every week with the new link and events. We are setting up our student clubs and organizations to start the new semester with the right foot. We are preparing with different clubs and departments to increase engagement in our college community. We have started with the student activities and SGA open house and served pizza as well. We also collaborated with Daly College, Malcolm X, and Kennedy King to hold a virtual cooking class. We are very excited about the upcoming semester and our consistent work with the college administration to continue supporting our SGA and campus goals for the year. Olive Harvey College in January, workshop on a school and life balance event was held on January 18th at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. in person. Online meet and greet event was held on January 19th at 12 p.m. via Zoom. Know Your Campus trivia game was held on January 20th, 12 p.m. in person and via Zoom. Club recruitment week was held from January 24th through 27th. College films, January 15th and January 16th at 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. in person. In February, Black History Month, February 8th and 9th, Black History Month film will be held at 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. in person. Rules of Engagement, February 14th at 12 p.m. in person. Trauma of Black Bodies and Coping Methods event will be held with Wellness Center on February 17th at 12 p.m. TVA location. Black History Month trivia game is on February 22nd at 12 p.m. via Zoom. Harold Washington College. The SGA of Harold Washington College have been busy at work preparing events for the spring 2022 semester. Despite enrollment being low and less received activity from clubs, we are eager and ready to help our student body with whatever they may need. The spring 2022 semester began the week of January 18th. For the first week of classes, SGA prepared a welcome week celebration of events. We would like to thank and give a special recognition to the Secretary Carolina Harrow for lead planning of the welcome week. January 18th, a welcome back lunch giveaway was held on the first floor of the school for students taking in-person classes this semester. January 19th, since the 17th was MLK's birthday, we hosted a screening of an MLK's documentary on the 11th floor for students and faculty to watch to celebrate his life and gain insight onto the social justice he believed in. January 20th, SGA hosted a virtual trivia game night over Zoom so that all students may be able to join regardless of if they were taking classes in person or not. Our audience had fun and were active. Many thanks to our host, Ivan SGA trustee, and Carolina SGA secretary. As a token of thanks, we plan to give out prize packages to the students that participated. January 21st, SGA hosted its first virtual meet and greet event so students could get to know their leaders on a personal level and learn what SGA and Harold Washington have to offer. Daily College, January past event. Free popcorn for National Popcorn Day was held on January 19th. Virtual cooking lessons was held on January 20th. Student activities open house week includes Winter Wonderland event was held on January 24th with hot chocolate, food giveaways, games, and music. Club Day was held on January 25th. Bulldog Mingle Day was held on January 26th with games, giveaways, music, and mingle with daily students, faculty, and staff. Daily College provided COVID kit, mask, hand sanitizer, etc. Carnival Day was held on January 27th with caricature artists, games, giveaways, music, and food. Cold winter bags donations for MLK's Day. On behalf of Daily College, we would like to wish everyone a Happy New Year. In celebration of Black History Month, the Daily family shares with you a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We must accept infinite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Kennedy King College upcoming events for Thursday, February 10th, all Kennedy King clubs and sports will come to set up a table at the West Building introducing their club and sports to the students. Thursday, February 17th, this will be RBSP event where couples or friends can paint a matching picture. We'll continue increasing student clubs and providing monthly surveys to voice their concerns and identify what SGA can do to make their Kennedy King College experience rememberable. The time is heavy, but I see kindness more than before, and it gives me hope in our shared humanity. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Fazal Hope. We'll now hear from the Chancellor.
Thank you, Chair Massey. Good afternoon to everyone. I want to start by thanking the faculty, the staff, the students, everyone in our CCC community for their flexibility during this challenging period. We continue to pivot as quickly as we can to adjust to changing conditions. And so thank you everyone for your cooperation and your support throughout this pandemic. Every February, City Colleges looks forward to paying tribute to the generations of African Americans who have made a lasting impact on our colleges, our city, and our greater society. From our college namesakes to our student organizations to the programs we offer, Black history has shaped who we are as an institution, and our celebration of Black History Month is a cherished tradition here at City Colleges of Chicago. We want to invite you to join us in honoring the contributions of African Americans by participating in one of the events that we are having all across our colleges, as our student trustee has been sharing. We have a site, www.ccc.edu/BHM, Black History Month. We've got several events there already, and new events are popping up, as we become aware of them. So, City Colleges is a diverse community of learners, and Black History Month is one of the many cultural celebrations we will hold throughout this year, together. And so let's continue to be in community with each other, celebrating the many contributions of the past, present, and those that are going to come in the future, from our students, faculty, and leadership working together. This past week, I do want to share that I had the opportunity to celebrate two exciting new programs. Daily College is launching an After 22 program to serve people with disabilities after they age out of the public school system at 22. You can imagine how difficult this is for those students and their families. Literally, when our students with disabilities hit 222, their birthday is celebrated by being completely cut off from the public education that they have gotten, the supports they have gotten through our public education system. And so, we designed with community partners a program that would give them an opportunity to become part of city colleges of Chicago when they turn 22 with the right supports. We had a wonderful event on Saturday. We heard from a parent and we heard from a caregiver. What we really heard was this program is a lifeline. This program is a transformational opportunity. And as I said before, testament to our commitment to partnerships. We're working with Special Olympics. They provided some initial seed funding for this. We're working with the Annexter Center. They've been, sort of the critical glue here. And we'll also be working on employment opportunities for these students. I really want to thank President Janowski and her team at Daly for running quick with this opportunity. In fact, I think it was President Janowski's first week as president when we introduced this possibility. We had hoped to announce it at the beginning of the pandemic, but like many other things, we just couldn't get it started, our partners and ourselves. But we're happy that it is now going to begin with the first cohort in March. Okay, so keep your eye on this after 22. Look, I also had a chance to listen to a group of students in the Olive Harvey College's Still I Rise program, which provides cannabis education to individuals with a previous cannabis charge. Today, in fact, the board is going to consider hiring a staffing firm to bolster employment placement for students that are completing the program. We've got a couple of community partners that are helping us to do recruitment, places like UCAN and Centers for New Horizons. So activating that strong, rich, and wonderful base of community institutions that have, deep knowledge and are an incredible resource in those communities to help identify and support students coming through this pipeline. I will tell you, I was blown away by the students that I met, their entrepreneurial spirit, their drive to advance their education, and just the felt sense of support that they have from our colleges. We truly are uplifting communities here at City Colleges of Chicago in very unique ways. And so I want to thank President Hollingsworth, Olive Harvey team, because they move so quickly to realize these opportunities in the cannabis field. We are being economic responsive, both to the market opportunities, but also to the people in our community that deserve and merit a real chance of entering into those market opportunities. And so keep your eye on Still I Rise, now into the future. Tomorrow, by the way, I'll be visiting a few Chicago public school high schools where we will present, we'll be present with CPS students who have just been awarded apprenticeships with Chicago companies through our Career Launch Chicago effort. This is one of the programs that we're doing through the Chicago Roadmap. So that's going to be a lot of fun meeting these students. We're going to their high schools so we can, sort of celebrate them at their place rather than have them, come here. And so I'm looking forward to see Martinez will be joining me at a couple of these high schools. And so, look, these are just a few of the numerous efforts underway through our district strategic framework, our 5-year college strategic plans. The district and college teams, the city college teams, we've been working on these plans the entire year. And in fact, today you're going to hear from Chief of Staff and Strategy, Veronica Herrero, and Provost Mark Potter on some of the highlights of that work and our performance measures. So despite, I will say, challenging conditions, I'm pleased that we continue to make progress to better support our students. And as a learning institution, we always know that we're going to keep learning ourselves and using what we learn to better serve those who come to us seeking to realize their goals. So we will get better, and and we will learn, and we will grow, and we will serve. So Chair Massey, that concludes my remarks for this month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. We'll now have public participation. Today we have, I think, four. Yeah, we have four individuals who've signed up to speak to us. When your name is called, you will be unmuted and you will have up to 3 minutes to make remarks on the subject which you indicated on in your communication to the board office. The board's chief advisor will notify you when you've used your 3 minutes and to bring your, so you can bring your remarks to a close. As you registered, you were each reminded of our procedures with regard to the nature of your comments, and I would ask that you respect and adhere to that direction and the time requirements. The chief advisor, please call the roll. Please call the list of speakers.
The first speaker, also before I called them, we had 2 letters. They were from Lenny Devin Linkjar, and it was like Leslie Williams. And those were put into the, I'm sorry, they were from Susan Pogash and Leslie Williams. And those records and those letters were put into the record. The first person is Tony Johnston. Tony Johnston. Oscar, do we have Tony Johnston?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Johnston, and I'm the president of Local 1600, which represents faculty, professionals, and security in the city colleges. First off, thank you for considering the approval of the security contract that will be before you today. As you will hear from other of our members, our concerns of telework and remote are primarily for our academic professionals, but really this is an issue that affects us all at the city colleges. Our union is currently in negotiations with faculty and professionals. How remote and telework are to be used by my members is a crucial issue, perhaps the most important issue. Unfortunately, your negotiating team has expressed in no uncertain terms that it is not interested in bringing telework and remote language into our contracts. This has been expressed in 2 ways. First, they say the board already has a telework policy, which is true, but it is limited in scope of who will work under these telework provisions. We need something in our contract that is legally binding that would set the parameters about telework for all my members. Second, they say the pandemic will go away one day and things will all go back to normal. This isn't going to happen, and it is either naive to think so, or it's an intentional deflection from discussing this issue. The pandemic has shown us that COVID is not going away, and neither are the conflicts and issues that it has brought. Infectious disease experts are no longer talking about defeating COVID, but living with COVID. We've had several variants, and there will be more. Our faculty and professionals have proven themselves resilient, capable, and creative in shifting to remote work like thousands of other educators and people in other careers and occupations. While we know and understand that education and academic support in a face-to-face setting with one-on-one interactions is something uniquely special and valuable, we've all learned that online, remote, or telework are effective modalities and need to be provided as an option for our students. The change of this board meeting from in-person to virtual is a perfect example of how these shifts in modality can happen. Your own human resources team have created positions that are 100% remote, and they admit it is because of the need to attract and talent and retain them. Our members are asking for that same courtesy. Perhaps the most vivid, illogical, and unnecessary situation is that facing our tutors. The tutors are being forced to attend and work in person, yet over 95% of their tutoring load is remote. That is, students are choosing to opt for remote support, as should be their privilege, to take advantage of the skills our tutors offer. Yet, tutors are forced to travel many times on public transportation, putting themselves at risk in order to help students in a virtual setting, which could have easily been done from home. There are many other examples: testing specialists, college advisors, disability access note takers, our own librarians, who are in the same position, as are many employees in other working groups. We as educators are not turning our back on face-to-face education, but the world has changed and our working conditions need to change with it. This issue cannot be ignored. Our members will not let it be ignored. We are urging the board to direct your negotiating team to address this issue with us at the table. It is in the best interest for students, our employees, and for this institution going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person is Brian Willard. Brian Willard.
Ryan, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Willard, and I'm the testing coordinator here at Harold Washington College. I've been in this position for over 10 years now, and over the course of this time, I've observed that there are discernible discrepancies between my department and others within the City College's system, and even within the 1600 union itself. I'm specifically referring to the inequity currently present in the telework policy you passed in October of 2021. Which permits non-bargain for employees and faculty the allowance to work remotely, and not 1600 professionals as well. Back when COVID first hit the city of Chicago, the testing center staff was required to work remotely in accordance with the recommendations of the CDC and so forth. During that time, we were flexible and compliant in regards to our admin's directives so that we could still maintain service to the student body without disruption or increased red tape. And I'm proud to say that we effectively proved that all of our duties and customer services could be successfully and efficiently fulfilled remotely. Despite our excellent performance during that time, we were called back to campus in July of 2021. And since then, the ubiquitous spread, dangers, and residual effects of the COVID pandemic have barely subsided. Now, our department receives almost daily notifications of confirmed COVID cases at Harold Washington College alone. These cases have increased exponentially since we were called back to campus and average approximately 11 cases of confirmed COVID tests per month. But these cases are directly placing my team at risk when a reliable and proven method is available for us, but is currently being withheld from us in the testing center, as well as the other 1600 professionals. Why we cannot exercise the privilege of remote work options that non-bargain for employees and other members of the same union are is unfair and is effectively placing all staff at risk by forcing us to interact in close quarters with one another, not to mention the public, who may or may not be vaccinated despite the best efforts made by city colleges to provide a safe work environment. And I wonder, why is this understanding and care for employees' safety and personal health granted to some, but not all members of this same union? In closing, I need to say that City Colleges has routinely treated my department like the unwanted stepchild in the midst of a bitter divorce, if you will. And my team works far too hard and receives far too little compensation, gratitude, and gestures of equality from district office for what we contribute. Please, please, please take a moment to consider which forgotten departments are tirelessly working to keep this institution afloat and ultimately tasked with and succeed in generating enrollment growth, positive student experiences, and upholding our academic integrity standards. 1,600 professionals work to continue building this institution up, despite receiving loud and clear feedback from district office that rejects our own safety and pleas for equality. This needs to change. Thank you very much for your time.
Lenny Reinhardt.
Hi, Lenny, you're unmuted. You can go.
Oh, perfect. How's it going? So my name is Leonard Reinhardt, and I'm speaking on behalf of my wife, Wendy, who is currently working as the Veteran Services Specialist at Truman College. This is in regard to the remote work policy. I also speak on behalf of our beautiful daughter, Augustine, whose health during this pandemic creates tremendous concern, specifically now that Wendy is no longer allowed to work remotely. So here's our story, which I'm sure is one of hundreds, many of whom might not be available because they are at work. Wendy started working for Truman College shortly after the pandemic began in 2020. At that time, she worked primarily remote, but had to come into the office 1 or 2 days a week, despite no students being on campus. In December 2020, we found out that she was pregnant and was categorized as a high-risk pregnancy. Then in May of 2021, we learned that our daughter would be born with a congenital heart defect, tetralogy of Fallot, if you've heard of that. Wendy submitted the paperwork for accommodations. However, it took EEO over 55 days to approve this request to telework, despite the danger that COVID presented to her and our unborn child. Augie was born prematurely. So 2 weeks later, Wendy started her maternity leave regardless. When she returned to work, however, she asked if it was possible to work remotely while our daughter was in the hospital for her heart surgery and recovery. Augie had heart surgery at 2 weeks old, but Wendy was unable to basically work with her employer. This request was denied despite the ongoing pandemic. So this had two impacts. One on our family, as I described, but it also deeply impacted the veterans she serves. Chancellor Salgado, we watched as you accepted the 2021 Lou Lohengrin Commitment to Veterans Excellent Award. Yet our veterans are impacted too by this very policy. During our daughter's surgery and recovery, Wendy could not continue to work in person. Our daughter was fighting for her life. So the Veteran Services Office had to close at Truman, and the veterans were unable to access necessary services except those mandated by law, which could be handled by other personnel during her absence. Telework would have allowed Wendy to continue providing services to Truman's veterans instead of shutting down the whole department until her return. Even now, Augie is preparing for her third procedure, and we have no idea what will happen during this time. Augie is one of the highest risk categories for COVID, yet Wendy is not eligible for accommodations. Every day Wendy goes to work, she risks bringing the virus home. Think about the situation we are currently in. And Chairman Massey, I know you especially are a man of science. So just consider, the vaccines currently do not prevent infection or transmission entirely. The testing facilities across the city are being investigated for fraud and for providing false test results. We don't know who has COVID, when they have COVID, or if it's being transmitted. Variants are constantly developing, and we are on the cusp of the 1 millionth COVID death in our country. As a law student at Loyola, I can mitigate my risk through almost everything being remote. Why can't this institution? This meeting is remote. So there is no legitimate reason why remote work should not be permitted. So I ask you to allow this in the future. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Ruth Giles Ott.
Hi, Ruth, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Giles,
Yes, we can. And then can you please turn off the live stream or mute
Oh,
it?
yes,
Thank you.
sure. There, I think we're all set now. My name is Ruth Giles Ott. I'm a graduate of Malcolm X College's personal fitness training program and their physical therapist assistant program. I went out to work as a clinician, but I returned to work as an embedded physical therapist assistant program tutor, and also with the academic support services, both as an in-person and remote tutor. And I came back because, like my colleagues, I really believe in the mission of the city colleges to bring quality education and the opportunity for meaningful work to our whole community. Accessibility is so important, and remote learning is critical to achieving that goal of accessibility, especially for our students who are so rich in work ethic, in persistence and vision, but are very poor as to time, also transportation, money. There are lots of different ways that remote learning has really assisted our students so much. A lot of these procedures were born in the crucible of the pandemic and to prevent infection, but they're going to remain with us, not just here in Chicago, globally, because these systems like this Zoom respect people's safety, but also their time. Our students, my students work, I would say 90% of them are working significant part-time or full-time hours. They support children, extended family members, both here and abroad. I have students who work in warehouses as CNAs. They're extremely hardworking people. Their work hours do not align necessarily with our hours of operation. By requiring tutors to physically swipe in and swipe out in our physical college locations, we're limiting access to these services to our students to the hours that the building is open. And that just doesn't align with the reality of a lot of our students and the people who most need our help. We can do this, and the physical therapy program had amazing success during the pandemic in terms of the grades students achieved, the passage rate on the National Physical Therapy Examination. We know we can do this. The only obstacle is just not being allowed to do it, and I truly don't understand. It feels very, well, quite frankly, hurtful that in the absence of any explanation, I can only presume it's because we are not regarded as sufficiently professional, committed to the work, trustworthy, honest, and I have never seen that in the professors here, in the tutors. I see among all the staff that I interact with a real dedication to the mission. We want to be able to provide these services to our students. There's so many people who are so grateful. I love in-person tutoring. It's my favorite. I love being embedded, but that doesn't meet all the needs of our students, and we really want to do that. Thank you for your consideration.
Chair, that is the last speaker.
Thank you. I want to thank all the speakers for sharing your concerns with us. As I've said before, be sure that the board appreciates hearing these issues directly from a community. So now we will hear the faculty council report from Professor Keith Spruer. Professor Spruer.
Chairperson Massey, Board of Trustees, Chancellor Salgado, Provost Potter, officers of the district, faculty, staff, and all others streaming, good afternoon. Here we are a few days into another Black History Month. While we are not nearly close to the promised land that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of, for some time, we've been able to celebrate the incremental achievements of specific Black people in the diaspora and the position of Black people in the world, in particularly in the United States. However, these past few Black History Months have shown us that, to some degree, our optimism had been blinding us to the growing anti-Black sentiment that surrounded us, and that we had possibly romanticized moments when we should have focused on the progress of an overall movement. As history is social and the value and efficacy of historical actions are sometimes debatable, it is hard to calculate with any accuracy what has definitely been achieved. However, progress becomes most clear in our laws, It is a space where progress is codified. For Black people in America, there have been three major moments in which our value to this country have been codified in law, all three in the Supreme Court. Dred Scott versus Sanford, in which Scott, an enslaved Black man, was taken by his enslavers from Missouri, a slave state, to Illinois, a free state. He argued that when he was taken to Illinois, again, a free state, that he was automatically free. The court issued against Scott, and in opinion, they said, quote, that people of African descent are not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizen in the Constitution, and therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States, end quote. The second moment being Plessy versus Ferguson, in which the court used the concept, quote, equal but separate, end quote, and that's the exact wording of the court, to maintain segregation. The court added that Plessy's claim that enforced separation of the races inherently suggests inferiority of Blacks was false. They famously stated, quote, if this is to be so, it is not by reason of anything found in the act, but solely because the colored race chooses to put that construction on itself, end quote. Anyone could look around and unarguably see that the condition of Black public spaces was in fact not equal to that of whites. And finally, in Brown versus the Board of Education, many of us think of the landmark ruling, which ended segregation in schools, as a triumphant moment, both for Blacks and for our country. But many are aware of Brown versus Board of Education 2, in which the court, after having decided the original Brown case, heard arguments in the subsequent session to consider how states were to desegregate schools. None of this was outlined in Brown 1. In Brown 2, the court ordered the states to integrate their schools, quote, with all deliberate speed, end quote, meaning take as long as you want. This allowed all white schools who had not followed the ruling of Brown 1 to remain segregated. This is the codified history of Black people in America, one in which the highest court in the land has time and time again spat in our faces and legally enshrined the idea that African Americans are second-class citizens, if citizens at all. Again, while there have been gains, during the past few years, we have witnessed numerous incidents of anti-Blackness, both that on the part of the individual and of the state. And this is what makes the work of city colleges so important. When we see things like attacks on voting rights, which in the states proposing these restrictions would most affect Black people, we have to remember, and I've said this before, if nothing else, one of the primary functions of education is to inculcate students into a democratic society and arm them with the tools to fully participate in it. That's what we do. And I'm so proud to be part of an institution that keeps this in mind. This is why the equity work that we have been engaged in is so crucial in a time such as this. Education is often considered to be the great equalizer. I'm not so sure of that, but I know that educated individuals are statistically healthier and live longer lives. I know that they have better chances of generational upward mobility. I know that they have a lesser chance of being incarcerated. In short, I know that they have better lives. And we are a part of bettering the lives of so many. We do this despite what politicians and judges and others who profit on the marginalization of people, Black people in particular, would have us to do. What a court has to say about any of our constituents is of no consequence. It's our job to educate citizens in a way that frees them. Education liberates. It's our job to empower them to navigate and change or destroy systems that wish them harm, and to arm them with skills needed to build new systems that benefit us all. As an organization tasked with creating the opportunity for bettering lives, we are only as good as the least among us, the least privileged. And an eye toward justice in the philosophical sense obliges us to take action, to make decisions as if we are the least of these. It is my hope that through programming held this month across the district, that we lift up the truth about our history, both the good and the bad, so that each of us, regardless of race, will be able to fully participate in our democracy and will side with those who most need our help. Our work in the cannabis space is just one of the ways we redress historical inequities among the many efforts that we create to make real change in racial equity. This was a bit lengthy, so I'll be brief about the following items and welcome requests of the board members to follow up on any issues in more detail. As we all know, COVID is still raging on, and as this is at the forefront of our minds, when the semester began, we resumed our meetings with FC4's COVID Response Committee and our district partners. This has continued to be a positive relationship, resulted in policies and policy changes that aim to keep us safe and to preserve the integrity of our academic offerings during this unprecedented time. I will only highlight a few of the issues that faculty are most concerned about, with the caveat that we are in continued conversations which have not gotten to any place in which we've reached a final space of disagreement. Faculty are very concerned about conducting an in-person graduation at this time. Believe it or not, scientists only discovered the original Omicron variant 2 months and a few days ago. It seems like we've been struggling with it forever, considering its veracity. However, it's only been 2 months. That hasn't even been enough time to fully understand it. And there has been the discovery of a variant of Omicron, which is reported to be no less severe than the original. Considering this, we still have plans to hold what could become a super spreader event in 3 months. One of the reasons given for the decision was that students really wanted to have a graduation. And while we understand the value of a ceremony to mark the completion of a remarkable achievement, we also have to be clear that public health decisions aren't based on what people want. They're based on what is good for society. Had that been the case, if we decided that we would do whatever people wanted, we would have literally been parading down the streets maskless a long time ago. This disease has been so unpredictable, and we don't have signs yet that we are nearing the endemic stage of it. So it seems counterintuitive to any concepts of public health that we would go ahead and continue this in-person graduation. I understand that the decision was made last year prior to the wildfire spread of Omicron. However, knowing what we know now, there is still time to right the ship. The only detail about safety protocols for the event we have been given to date is the requirement to wear masks and that we would have them on hand to pass out. Provost Potter said he would invite the planners of the event to share a fuller plan with us. On a related note, it was brought to our attention that our librarians were being prohibited from staffing the library chat remotely. This creates situations in which library faculty are coming into the buildings and staying after hours to man the chat, which would be outside of their contractual obligations. And it is unstaffed on Sundays as our buildings are closed. This has created a very serious problem. A crucial service is not being offered to our students, often when they need it most, later in the evenings and on Sundays, a peak time in which students work on projects. I don't know the ins and outs of the policy which prevents this, but Provost Potter assured us that he would speak with the authors of the policy to find a solution. Our librarians are faculty. While they're not assigned classes, their work as teachers, as faculty within their spaces feels like it isn't being honored. There were talks of creating a position for a person to solely man the chat, which doesn't seem to be the best option when we have faculty who could schedule their time both in the building and remotely to staff this important student-facing work. Again, as faculty, there's already a precedent for us to be able to fulfill some of our teaching load online. This seems like the equivalent way for our library faculty to teach their loads. Thankfully, throughout the pandemic, none of us have lost our jobs or missed a check. We have had the ability to work remotely, particularly when infection and mortality rates were at their highest. Unlike faculty, many of our professionals and administrators have been in our spaces, in our physical spaces, and to some degree, putting themselves at risk. While we fully understand the need for in-person services, we also should recognize a few things in this moment and moving forward. A lot of the work that our professionals are doing could be done remotely, and we could further lessen people on the campus, thus lessening risk. Many student services, even when students come on campus, are being done remotely through Zoom. So though the telework policy allows employees to telework so many days a week with their supervisor's approval, and that is wonderful and has aided in our ability to be flexible and lessen risk, it could be expanded. There's really no need for some individuals to be on campus so frequently. Looking forward, we have to really consider the nature of knowledge work, work that isn't tied to a physical space, and to some extent, much of our student service work has been proven through the pandemic that it could be done and done well remotely. Employers are getting wise to how our home lives are shifting, and options with less in-person work are available. Luckily, we haven't seen the type of mass resignation as other sectors, but that doesn't mean that we are immune to it. The world is shifting away from the factory model of work. The constraints of where and when one works in many cases has become arbitrary and is out of step with our current lives. In some cases, it even makes elitist assumptions about workers' lives. The sentiment that I've gotten from many of our professionals is that they feel like they have been brought back so that supervisors could watch them. This is an unwarranted distrust of workers, considering the high level of services they were able to provide during the beginning of the pandemic. And it didn't begin with the pandemic. It began with employees had to start swiping in and out. Faculty don't do this. And I'm making assumptions that we didn't have to do this because our work is respected in a different way and the value of our time calculated differently. So I'm suggesting that we have to reconsider what the actual rhythm of work looks like versus how we have traditionally imagined it, and create something that better suits our realities. But more than that, we have to find ways through even things like scheduling that helps to show the respect we have for our employees and their work. This brings me to my last outstanding issue, which are the incredible numbers of leadership vacancies at some of our colleges. While the pandemic has been rough, it's been especially difficult for people in positions of leadership. A few board reports ago, I discussed this issue of how we treat each other, and that I was uninterested in having conversations about caring communities if that didn't also extend to our leadership. Then I said that the environment has been created for our college leadership, if not evaluated and changed, would lead to resignations and instability in our colleges. I didn't imagine that within months we would be here, but here we are. Something is happening that has caused key individuals, both in our college leadership and at the district office, to leave. This isn't debatable. This is a fact. People with institutional knowledge, people who have been known to work well with their colleagues, faculty, and staff, people who are good at what they do have left us. And a simple Google search will show you that they didn't leave for better jobs. Most have been lateral moves, and they are doing the same thing elsewhere, where they feel valued, where they aren't thrown into unnecessarily chaotic situations. They have taken their talents elsewhere. And if I'm honest, I'm happy for them. I saw what was happening. I had faculty in our FC4 meetings who have literally cried over the loss of good leadership. To protect the anonymity of these individuals, again, both leadership and staff, the through line of what I've heard from them is that they felt that their ideas either weren't respected or their ideas were co-opted by the district. They felt that prioritization of projects and initiatives was lacking, and that everything came with a sort of immediacy that made it difficult to create a tenable working situation. They felt that communication skills from senior leadership needed to be developed, both in how information is communicated and how many times directives had to be walked back or clarified, and sometimes the tone in which they were spoken to. And the most common trait among them is that they are much happier and the quality of their lives has improved since they've left. This is a problem. This is a problem I don't have an answer to, but executive leadership, you have an obligation to evaluate what is happening with your teams, what energy you bring to those spaces, and how factors contribute to this type of mass dissatisfaction. And a real introspective evaluation might uncover that you are a major contributor to this, but it also creates an opportunity to change and to move forward with that change. I would hope that change would be met with grace. Certainly, I think as faculty, our relationships with our executive leadership are perpetually moving in that direction. And I believe that we try to meet each other with grace. Board members, you have some obligation in acting in the best interest of our institutions to investigate and provide support and resources to help our leadership make these sorts of environmental changes. It is my hope that this matter is taken seriously and not abdicated. As with all things, I don't believe that any of this is insurmountable. I believe there's often a desire to do better, even if we don't always know the way. And on occasion, I've seen acts of humility on which my hope for better is built. I thank you for your time. Please have a reflective, meaningful, and engaged Black History Month. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Professor Spruill. So we do have a district update today on the strategic plan. And I think Chief Strategy Officer Herrera will present that.
Thank you, Chair Massey. I'm going to pull up the slides. So just give me 1 minute. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, trustees, Chair Massey, Vice Chair Swanson. Today, Provost Potter and I will be walking you through the progress we've made in the first year of our path forward. Just over a year ago, we launched our Path Forward, our 5-year strategic framework, college strategic plans, unified strategic initiatives, and 3-year KPI targets. At the heart of the framework is our vision statement, which, as you may recall, was developed with a diverse group of CCC community members. It is to be recognized as the city's most accessible higher education engine of socioeconomic mobility and racial equity, empowering all Chicagoans to take part in building a stronger and more just city. And it also includes 6 levers that steer our strategies and efforts across the district. I would like to start with highlighting some key achievements from the first year. To date, we have made great progress on over 2/3 of the work outlined in the Unified District Initiatives. As you will hear from Dr. Potter in just a bit, we have overall been able to sustain or improve outcomes on momentum, completion, and mobility KPIs during yet another COVID-impacted year. We are particularly proud of how our collective efforts to improve the rate at which students take and pass college-level English and math in their first year have resulted in significant gains. On the access front, we hired our first Vice Chancellor of Enrollment, Dr. Daryl Williams, and he has been leading the way in making critical first steps towards transforming the enrollment experience for our students. Given the additional barriers that our students faced this past year, we prioritize the development of equity-focused financial supports and programs for our students. We offered a variety of scholarship programs, emergency and retention grants, programs such as Future Ready and Fresh Start, and the development of new short-term certificates and CE programs, as we try to get Chicagoans back on their feet. A new student success framework was implemented across all 7 colleges, promoting collaboration, holistic student support, and a culture of care for our students. And finally, we continue to move full speed ahead on the Chicago roadmap work under new CPS leadership. We believe we've been able to make significant progress in the first year for a number of reasons, noting 3 in particular. As we've presented in previous board meetings, we received $46.3 million in HERF funds through the American Rescue Plan Act, which we were able to use to cover income losses brought upon us by the enrollment declines and make strategic investments in our efforts outlined in the college and district level plans. In the past year, we've also benefited from a doubling of both private and public competitive grant revenue and stability in key leadership positions at the district office. Now shifting to challenges or important takeaways from our first year. So even though we believe we have managed very well through difficult times, and we still know that for a fact, the impact of the pandemic continues to be significant for our students, and in particular for our Black students. And we will double down on our equity efforts to support our students of color, who we expect will continue to face challenges in the years ahead, and that these challenges will continue to impact their enrollment decisions and their ability to persist and complete. We've been able to have stability in key leadership positions, but we have not been immune to the great resignation that employers have been experiencing across the country. And related to this challenge, we have experienced delays on priorities such as efforts to launch the Anti-Racism Committee and our ability to advance on strategic objectives related to developing and investing in our people and culture. Based on what we've learned, built, and experienced in year 1, we've outlined the following priorities for year 2. We'll continue to focus on the work and the partnerships that will enable us to close equity gaps and significantly improve outcomes for our Black students. We will be taking an intensive approach to monitoring the full student life cycle of all student cohorts to constantly inform strategies related to retention, completion, and our 4-year outcomes measure. And we will take a collaborative and 7-strong approach to improving first-year student success outcomes through the launch of the first-year experience labs. We will scale, continue, and refine programs and efforts that we know are working. From our Chicago Roadmap Navigator program and our student success framework to our financial and tuition supports, such as our developmental education tuition waivers, Future Ready, and Fresh Start. We will deepen partnerships with community-based organizations and take a human-centered approach to connect and reconnect Chicagoans to CCC programs and supports, focusing on adults with some college and no degree and parent learners. Last but certainly not least, we must focus on living out the values of our strategic framework and the human-centered practices and efforts that will be critical to achieving an exceptional student experience and building a culture of excellence for the entire CCC community. So the following slides provide additional detail on the progress by lever, and I won't go through all the detail because it is a lot, but I will speak to some of the items that haven't yet been highlighted and are notable. Our first goal is to create an exceptional student experience. One of our objectives under this goal is to build a culture of excellence for adult education. Now that we have hired a new AVC of adult education, we are well positioned to start developing a new, clear, and expansive vision for post-pandemic adult education. I would also like to call out and celebrate the district-wide collaboration and collective efforts of faculty and staff across the district that has led to the gains in the college-level math and English passing rates. Faculty and administration have worked together to implement DevEd committee recommendations, and through the Chicago Roadmap, CCC and CPS have expanded transitional math to all CPS high schools and doubled the number of high schools offering transitional English. We are prepared to implement the new placement profile by GPA to implement additional recommendations and continue to build on the momentum created over the past year. The second lever is equity, and the goal is to become a student-ready and equitable institution. Here I will highlight our progress and priorities under our objective to enhance student support services. As we all know, the pandemic has increased the need for both wellness supports and technology. This past year, we were able to expand district-wide wellness supports and will continue to expand in the next year, including offering teletherapy services. We will also launch a tech equity initiative, which will provide devices and connectivity to our students, thanks to the generous support of our philanthropic partners. Our third lever is economic responsiveness, and our goal here is to develop and strengthen pathways that are responsive to the economic needs of our city. For this lever, I will highlight the wonderful partnerships that we have forged and expanded with various four-year institutions, workforce partners, sister agencies, and community-based organizations to create pathways and career opportunities for Chicagoans. In this next year, we will continue to build on those partnerships, expand the reach of the existing programs, and grow the impact of these partnerships in addressing the workforce needs of the city. Our fourth lever is excellence, and the goal is to build a culture of excellence. In year one, we have made some important initial steps to invest in our talent and deepen our bench for college leadership positions with the creation of our Presidential Leadership Development Fund. And thanks to the Board of Trustees, we've enacted our first permanent telework policy. In year two, Provost Potter will be taking our leadership development a step further and will develop a faculty excellence recognition program and provide development opportunities for faculty leaders. We will also develop and implement human-centered practices and efforts that will allow us to practice our values, support our goals, to create an exceptional experience for the entire CCC community and a culture of excellence that inspires all of us to bring our whole and best selves to CCC. The fifth lever is collaboration, and our goal is to create a collaborative and connected ecosystem that supports student success. Again here, we've made some very important first steps with the development of the Chancellor's Leadership Forum, which brings college and district leadership together monthly to share best practices information and engage in district-wide problem solving, fostering cross-college collaboration on district priorities. We've also implemented new Navigate functionalities to enable more collaboration within colleges. This year, the student experience team will be focused on supporting college teams to fully integrate and implement all student success framework tools across all 7 colleges. We will also be continuing to build out the website redesign and a new CRM system. And lastly, we have our sixth lever, which is institutional health. In year one, we identified a set of operational functions that were critical to the health of our institution. Functions and workflows related to contract approvals, procurement, and grants management, for example. Progress was made in year one in some areas, with more improvements planned in year two. CFO Rodriguez made significant progress on the financial management objective, having centralized expense reporting and celebrated a clean audit. She is working to standardize expense management across colleges in year two. And critical to our health is our ability to capture student voice and feedback. This year, we piloted the Net Promoter Score, and we plan to refine our administration of the survey and integrate it into our continuous improvement efforts. And now I'll hand it off to my colleague, Provost Potter, so that he can talk about our progress on metrics. And I'll lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Go ahead to the next slide if you can. Yes, thank you. So our key performance indicators are intended as accountability measures for the core business of the district. The metrics we've identified fall at points along a student's life cycle, beginning with access. These are the enrollment-related metrics, progressing then to momentum, and these metrics include retention, taking and passing college-level English and math in the first year, and level gains in adult education. And then on to completion, comprised of our IPEDS graduation rate and our 4-year outcomes measure. And then finally to mobility. These are our postgraduate metrics of economic mobility and transfer. Takeaways from our KPI outcomes from the last 2 years include some notable strength in momentum metrics, as Chief of Staff Herrero mentioned already. We saw significant improvement in students who have successfully taken and passed college-level coursework in English and math in the first year. And we held steady in fall to spring retention. Completion remained strong, even amidst the COVID pandemic. Access, however, remains a challenge for city colleges, as it does for 2-year colleges nationally and in the state. We do anticipate continued impact from COVID, especially on enrollment and completion in the current fiscal year. As we look to improve outcomes, achieving greater equity in those outcomes remains top priority, with a particular focus on improving outcomes for our Black students. These are the line-by-line outcomes from fiscal years 20 and 21. I've just shared the key takeaways, but this slide provides a helpful visual of how we set floor and reach targets for each metric, and then present our actuals as either above or below those targets. And while our focus today is at the district level, we produce the same visuals for each college, which also has its own targets and actuals presented in the same way. I want to draw specific attention to the 4-year outcomes measure. This metric tells a fuller story of our outcomes than the traditional IPEDS graduation rate. It tracks larger cohorts of students who are more representative of our student body, and it includes transfer outcomes for those students who choose to transfer to a 4-year university prior to graduating from city colleges. This is also the metric that we are tracking closely for our equity work. The most recent gaps from fiscal year 21 are 25% between Black students and white students, and 20% between Latinx students and white students. We have an ambitious but attainable goal to close these gaps with a target for all groups of 55%. We'll get there in a 12-year timeframe by initially closing gaps by at least a third by 2025. And that 2025 date, by the way, coincides with the timeframe of our college equity plans. These next slides offer insight into trends from fiscal year 19 through fiscal year 21. And with respect to the 4-year outcomes measure, today's gaps are roughly on par with where we were in fiscal year 19. The pandemic has definitely made this work a greater challenge. Still, we remain committed to reaching our goals. Retention rates for first-year students have improved for, I'm sorry, I think you need to go back, Veronica. One more. Okay, this is it. Thank you. Retention rates for first-year students have improved for Black and Latinx students since 2019, narrowing the gap with white students. The rates were, however, roughly flat from fiscal year 20 to 21 for all groups of first-year students. And are we missing the slide for all students, Veronica?
I think the one we're missing is first year students. I think if you want to speak to all credits.
Then I'll just speak to both. So thank you. I described the trend for first year students. The trend is roughly the same for all students, with a slight narrowing of the gap between Black and white students and Latinx and white students, as the Black and Latinx rates have increased. When we're looking at all students, the rates are just slightly lower than they are for first year students. Okay. And then lastly, we measure transfer within 2 years after completion. And from among our students who complete, our transfer rates are relatively steady, around 50%, though we've seen a gain among Black students and a decline among white students in the last year or two. And back to you, Veronica.
Thank you. So I'll just close with sharing a few next steps with everybody. So today you heard from Dr. Potter and myself sharing about year 1 district level highlights. There will be additional opportunities for you and the public to learn more about the progress of our district and college plans. District and college KPI outcomes are now published on our website, along with letters from our chancellor and our 7 college presidents, reflecting on the progress that they have made on their respective plans. College presidents will have the opportunity to present to the board over the coming months and continue to meet individually with their respective trustee liaisons throughout the year to discuss the outstanding progress that they have made on their plans. And finally, we plan to hold an event in the late spring to share our progress and outcomes with the broader community. So thank you, and we will take questions.
Any questions of our team?
I just want to say thank you for providing us that level of detail around the key performance indicators. It's really helpful. And I look forward to working with each of the college presidents to obviously improve our numbers, but quite good in terms of presenting us the information. Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo Trustee Tillman's perspective. I think this strategic plan has been a terrific effort and pursued aggressively and with lots of data off of which every stakeholder can make decisions and can see what's going on. I wanted to ask a question though about the subject that that was brought to us in the public comments, which was remote learning. Even if we put COVID aside, pandemic aside, the remote work is something that I for one believe is occurring, and perhaps the pandemic has accelerated the interest in remote work, and the extent to which it impacts education Yeah, I want to make sure that this is not an elephant in the room that we're ignoring. I do think that that technology has greatly impacted all areas of our lives, from banking to retail, on the job logistics, and it's going to continue to impact education. And so, as we proceed with the measurements and the execution of our strategic plan, I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't keep the impact of technology, the use of technology, and remote work and remote learning well in mind.
Trustee Williams, I'd like to step in because I really do appreciate, greatly your perspective on this and your, addressing it at this moment. I will say, to be, real clear, and we've been consistent about this, the learnings that we've had and the growth that we've had as an institution in terms of, effectively moving to remote services, the virtual student services, and what we call online live, which is the remote learning. We've been real clear, this is here to stay. And, we've built our course offerings and our services completely around student choice. And that has been clear to all stakeholders within City Colleges of Chicago. We've communicated clearly with faculty council, with the trustees, with the leadership teams. We are investing in a future that includes multiple modalities and student choice in order to tap into the modalities that make the most sense for them. For some students, it's in person. For some students, it's remote or online live. So it's here to stay. We know it's here to stay. In fact, we've made adjustments thanks to your support. We're one of the early adopters of a permanent telework policy within the organization. We made that happen in pretty quick order in October. There are some things within that policy that we were able to get ahead of. There are other things within that policy that we're still learning and adapting to, as you heard from speakers today, right? And that's going to be a continuous process. I would predict without question with a new permanent telework policy that there will be adaptations over time, as we learn and try to be responsive, as an institution. But we didn't wait to have it perfect in order to have it in place, right? We understood that we needed to be in place. And I will say too that, it provides, as it stands right now, even with, the required adaptations that we know we're going to need to make at some point, in the future, because, this is a new world that we're living in. We're ahead of the curve in many respects. When we look at our sister agencies, when we look at other governmental units, who have been operating more with temporary policies, we've moved to a permanent policy. So we're fully aware and, utilize every opportunity to, deliberate and think deeply and try to make the right adjustments to, as our strategic plan, states, create exceptional student experience. That's our North Star. I want to be real clear. That's our North Star. So when we look at opportunities, like remote work, if it's contributing and can contribute more to an exceptional student experience, then we're going to lean into those opportunities. If it at all detracts, then we're not going to, right? It's that simple. And, we do work, by the way, really important in a very collaborative way within the institution, not just with my cabinet members, but directly with our presidents. So, we have, collective decision making that helps to, make sure that we make the best decisions, over time. So I just wanted to lay that out because that's been the frame through which we've been working on as a district.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you for that question, Trustee Williams. I should say also that that same data is also presented to us at the college level. So each trustee has a college with which they have a primary relationship. And so the presidents present those metrics at the college level. And I think it's wonderful. Then you see how it adds up. So we'll now move on to the committee report. Vice Chair Swanson, please.
Thank you, Chair Massey. Earlier this afternoon, we held the first meeting of the Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Services of this year. Provost Potter provided an update on the team's overall work, and the year is off to a great start. And I just want to underscore the engaging on the strategic planning, and just the level that was just presented has been really wonderful for all trustees, and as we dig in at the colleges as well. So thank you for that. The committee was productive and efficient. I would say that we jumped straight to the review and discussion of all the resolutions, personnel report, resource development report, agreements, purchases, and legal invoices contained in the February regular board meeting packet that's being brought before the board today in this meeting. And that was the full committee agenda. So thank you.
Thank you. And now you'll go to we'll hear the review and approval. So all items for board action are on the consent agenda. And I would note again for the record that these items, as Vice Chair Swanson just said, were discussed in detail in the Academic and Student Services Committee meeting prior to the full board meeting. So does any trustee have any questions or comments on any of the items listed on the consent agenda, or wish for separate action on any of these items? For the record, resolution number 1.06 will be voted on after we return from our closed session. Any questions, comments? May I have a motion to approve the resolutions, the personnel report, the resource development report, and the various agreements, purchases, and legal invoices contained in the consent agenda, excluding, as I said, resolution 1.06, and identified as part of the printed agenda on a single roll call vote. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Will the Chief Advisor call the roll?
Certainly. Trustee Williams?
Approved.
Trustee Davis?
Approve.
Trustee Tillman?
Approved.
Chair Massey?
Approve.
Vice Chair Swanson?
Approved.
Is that everyone?
That's everyone, yes.
Okay, so thank you. So now let the record show that the resolutions, personnel report, the resource development report, and the agreements, purchases, and legal invoices, excluding again, number 1.06, on the printed February 3rd, 2022 consent agenda have all been approved. So now, and in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, the board may hold a closed session for the discussion of matters related to a number of specified topics. Today's closed session will be for discussion of matters related to 2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body. And 2C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. May I have a motion to go into closed session with a roll call vote?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please, Chief Advisor.
Sure. Trustee Tillman?
Approved.
Trustee Swanson?
Approved.
Trustee Davis?
Approve.
Trustee Williams?
Approved.
Chair Massey?
Approved. So let the record show that the closed session motion has been approved and we will be back. So this, I think the site will stay on and live for those of you who wish to stay around until we come back. So will the board members and others please sign off from here, and then we will rejoin in the closed session. Thank you. Closed session. We've now returned from closed session. There were no actions taken in the closed session. The board will now vote on resolution 1.06. General Counsel Gowan, would you please give an overview of resolution 1.06?
Resolution 1.06 requests approval of the tentative agreement for collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Trustees and Local 1600 Security. The resolution also requests approval of to draft the CBA and for the board to authorize execution of that drafted CBA by the chair.
After Trustee Davis was having trouble getting in.
Right.
Bonnie, put us on mute. Bonnie, put us on mute.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will you call the roll, Chief Advisor?
Sure. Okay. Trustee Davis? Chair Massey?
Yes.
Approved. Okay, Campbell. Vice Chair Swanson?
Approved.
Trustee Tillman?
Approved.
And Trustee Williams?
Approved.
Wonderful. So let the record show that resolution 1.06 has been approved. So there being no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, everybody, have a good night.